Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 59 of 2020. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at The Odds Breakers and follow us on social media /The Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by MyBookie.ag. For a 200% sign-up bonus, please visit MyBookie and use the promo code ODDS200. Terms and conditions and location apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs, sponsor the podcast and the website, we'd love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, become a member. For $17.99 a month, you can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. If nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. Trying to log on here right now. Ask me if I'm a robot. I'm not a freaking robot. Jesus, CAPTCHA. All right. We have a great show for you today because we have Doug Upstone from Doc Sports to come and talk about the NFL. Doug's the man when it comes to the NFL. He's actually extremely good. Been following Doug for years. He's just got a knack for the NFL. I love it. I love listening to him. We're going to talk about some great things about top 5 teams, some underrated and overrated, and some fun stuff like that. I'm trying to get Cub Fan Danny on for tonight for some UFC. And since I'm doing this intro before I know for sure, I'm going to definitely do some UFC. So hopefully Cub Fan Danny has some few minutes to talk to us about that. And finally, I'm going to start out with some college football, which we are having a great year of winners. Hopefully we can give you a few more winners this week. My friends, did you watch the NFL game on Tuesday and Ryan Tannehill?
So hot right now.
He is so hot right now. And I got to tell you, I had to wait a long time before making that play. It was going to be a premium play, but then decided to share it with the public anyway. It was one of those games where you kind of just saw that everyone thinks the Titans are off for not practicing. Well, sometimes not practicing when you've been practicing the whole preseason and the first 4 or 5 games during the regular season, you're going to be okay anyway. A lot of people thought because they had some COVID issues that it was going to throw them off, so that line kept going towards Buffalo. And once I found out A.J. Brown was back and their big offensive lineman, it was an auto play for me at plus 3.5. We hit that and a little bit of the money line as well. So hopefully you're able to get that on our free picks newsletter. Sent that out probably 40 minutes or so before the game. And it was really great night for football. I got to tell you, the Titans are a weird team. They're 0-3 against the spread, but they're also 3-0 as a team. And the Bills undefeated at 4-0, and now they are 4-1 coming into Kansas City. And we're going to talk a little bit about that game. You know, you wonder if the Bills were looking ahead a little bit to this Kansas City game. Not sure. We were not able to use this in the circuit contest because I wasn't 100% sure this game was going to happen by Friday last week. So it was a great spot for Tennessee. Getting their guys back, playing at home, having some sort of a crowd there. And it was just a bad spot for Buffalo, and that's why it came to fruition. Well, my friends, we have some more NFL games to talk about this podcast, but there is a ton of injuries out there. So I didn't bet a ton of sides yet. Couple, maybe 1 or 2, but we do have some totals to go over as well. Hopefully we're going to get some more information on injuries. And then I do have a couple sides that I'm leaning towards in my mind that I will send to premium subscribers and possibly a few to some free picks subscribers as well. But my friends, it's going to be a long podcast. Let's get a little bit into college football week 7. The first game we're going to look at is Cincinnati versus Tulsa. Tulsa, a home dog at +3, +100. Man, this game, it looked a lot different on paper probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. There's been a little bit money bouncing back and forth at the 3.5 and the 3. You might be able to get a 3.5 if you like Tulsa here. And I'll just tell you right now, I do like Tulsa. Cincinnati has come into the scene as one of the favorites in the American Athletic Conference. But I think that Tulsa might have something to say about that. This Golden Hurricane team upset UCF at UCF about 2 weeks ago. The fact that they have a bye lessens the letdown spot here. They have a week to get over themselves, right? Don't get me wrong. And I like Cincinnati this year, but it's not like they're 5 or 6 points better than Tulsa as this line is suggesting. Okay. Let's look at the schedules. The Bearcats rank 85th hardest so far, playing an FCS team, Army, which turned out to be somewhat fake news, and USF, South Florida. Look at how bad South Florida is. Okay. Tulsa's schedule ranks 2nd in the nation so far, playing Oklahoma State, almost beating them, going yard for them, and beating Central Florida outright. Okay. So this home dog is barking, in my opinion. And this, just by the way, looking at strength of schedule is some great handicapping advice that I can give you right now, because there's some teams that have played extremely easy schedules, and the lines are not going to factor that in to a team that might have a bad record that played very hard schedule. This is one of those situations here, and not a huge sample, but I still like the home dog at +3, +3.5, whatever you can get. I'm going to give that away for 2 stars, premium, and sprinkle.
You're ridiculously good looking.
Next game, we have BYU versus Houston, +5. The total on this game is 62.5. I'm going to be honest with you. We gave this out at -3, and it was at -3 all the way up till Tuesday. All right. But there's still some value here at 5. This is the last time you're going to see BYU this low of a spread this year, except for maybe when they play Boise State. Okay. Maybe they're at Boise State. The Mountain West is coming back. The Cougars' schedule way too easy this year. The BYU team, 4 games under the belt. They're ranked in the AP top 15 now. But to be honest with you, Navy and Troy, those teams are not bottom feeders. They're just, middle of the road, I would say, group of 5 teams, right? Troy's better than people think. They did great last week, covered their spread. I would personally call those wins okay wins. But if you look at their opponent, Houston, they only played 1 game so far. 1 game under their belts, and they played a kind of a bad Tulane team. Okay? The big thing to me on this handicap is that there was a correction in the look-ahead line. It was a big correction. After Houston beat Tulane, and BYU only beat Texas San Antonio by 7 last week at home. They had the game under control the whole time. Just one of those that they wanted to get out. BYU should be more of a 7 or 8 point favorite here, in my opinion. Okay. Some big groups hit that -3, getting it to -5. I think that Houston is good. I like their coach. I like the team. They tend to have to air the ball out a lot, right? They're more of a finesse, throw the ball team with Clayton Tune. That style of play kind of plays into what BYU is good at. They shut down Troy. They held Troy to 7 points, and Troy is also an air-it-out team. So the fact that the matchup looks to favor BYU, in my opinion, I like this all the way up to -5.5 points. So 2 stars on that, BYU -5, and I'm going to make that a 2-star premium shared play.
Winning.
The next game we have is Ole Miss versus Arkansas. Arkansas is a home dog at +3. The total on this game is 76.5. Both of these teams coming off an extraordinary weekend. Arkansas was robbed by the officials at the end of that Auburn game. They clearly recovered that fumble. And just the fact that they blow the whistle dead and not know what they're doing is pretty pathetic as it is.
Oh, man, I have no idea what's going on.
But at the same time, there's nothing Arkansas can do about it. It's just kind of devastating to walk into the week after you know you really won that game. Ole Miss, on the other hand, went score for score with Alabama. not only covered a huge 24-point spread, but they almost won the game outright. They weren't going to win it outright. I mean, you're watching the game, you know there's no chance that Alabama's going to screw that up. But it's still hard to imagine them being so close and getting up the same way they did the very next week here and going on a huge offensive run. Now, Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss team plays fast, 21.7 seconds per play. But Arkansas has showed that they have a very solid defense against teams like Auburn, Georgia for 3 quarters, and don't forget shutting down Mississippi State to 14 points. They've played the hardest schedule in football so far. Number 1, Arkansas hasn't controlled the time of possession well, only averaging 25 minutes per game, but look at who they played. 70.7 seconds, or sorry, they're at 70.7 plays per game, which is a little bit below average, but the reason that's so low is because of the time of possession that I just went over. They're actually at 22.2 seconds per game, and that's probably why you see such a high total. But in my opinion, there's just too many things that can go wrong here not to hit under 76.5, especially after last weekend, both of these teams. One thing that I will say is that if there is not a lot of points scored in the first half, I'm going to hedge that at least for half, okay, and take the second half over. That's probably, sometimes it takes a while for teams to get your feet going. I love hedging totals because it can either go one way or the other. Scoring is back and forth. It's a little bit more tricky when you're hedging sides, but hedging totals is absolutely fun and fantastic. So I'm going to take the under 76.5, 2-star premium share play, and then at halftime, if yours is trending really good, you can set yourself up for a nice middle if you do take that over. So that's what I'm suggesting that you do on this game as well. The last thing I'm going to say about it is that this game is going to have 11.6 mile per hour winds, a little bit higher. That kind of favors the under when it's a little bit more windy. So just remember that. I'll be watching that weather report always when it comes to totals, but we're going to take the under 76.5, and then we'll be hedging for half on that baby if it's a very low scoring first half.
My mother warned me about getting into cars with strange men.
This isn't a coup.
All right, my friends, the last game here that we're not going to talk about yet, but I'm going to tease you a little bit. The Georgia-Alabama game, we already have a play on the Georgia versus Alabama game, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that with Kyle Hunter on our YouTube and Twitch show called Better Odds Sports Betting. So tune in. I think we're going to record it on Thursday. I'm guessing around noon Pacific time, and that will be available the whole weekend, obviously, on YouTube and our Twitch channel, The Odds Breaker. So if you don't follow that, please go and check that out. All right, now it's time to get into a little NFL football with our guy, Doug Upstone from Doc Sports. And now I'm very excited to welcome back a fantastic and very well-known professional handicapper and friend to our show. You can find some of his great work at DocSports.com. Very happy to introduce Mr. Doug Upstone. Doug, man, football season, we're in the mix. Summer's kind of fading a little bit. Fall season's coming in. How you feeling?
I am feeling fantastic. It's yes, the summer was certainly interesting, and and living where we do, it's been pretty interesting. The weather here as well. Whereas everybody else is looking to pull out sweaters and other types of things to wear, we're still sweating our behinds off with it 100 degrees every day.
Yeah, it's getting up there. I'm waiting for it to cool off. It's a little bit overdue here, kind of frustrating, but I'll still take it over shoveling snow any day of the week, my man. But
and twice on Sunday. You got that right.
Twice on Sunday. But anyways, man, so we have the NFL I think we're going to cover today, and it's been a crazy season. As everyone knows, you have the virus out there, you got some delays, you got some misconceptions in the market, and you have a lot of sharp lines, don't you, Doug?
Yeah, across the board on that. And it's just, the NFL is, they've done, I think, as good a job as they can do, and kind of where things are right now. Just in terms of the whole thing with the virus, unless they did, what hockey or the NBA did, that's the only way you're going to avoid it, and that's impossible to do. So I think they're doing as good a job as they can possibly do, and I think as bettors, we have to be more malleable than ever before and take it as it comes. So that's your responsibility if you want to try and beat the odds makers.
Yeah, exactly. And try to use it to your advantage if you can. And that was kind of my first question. How is it going with the expectations coming from the summer into the NFL? It is going better than I expected. I expected more outbreaks with teams, I suppose. The good news is you're not getting anybody too sick. The bad news is it has thrown off a few. But I think, according to my expectations, I thought it'd be a little worse. How about yours?
Yeah, no, I think it's been about what you would expect. I mean, you have a bunch of players and or teams that are paid to be professionals, so they have a job to do. And so their coaches stress that, everything in terms of what's needed and what's necessary. But as always is going to be the case, you're also talking about a lot of guys that are, 21 to 26 years old, whether they be single or not. They're going to want to do some things and maybe go and have some fun with a couple of their teammates, and maybe something happens. Or like in Tennessee's case, they wanted to do evidently some other work outside of the realm, and it didn't work out. But, those have been few and far between. And I think otherwise it's been, like I said, as good as you could possibly expect. And to your point, maybe even a little better.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed 100%. And hopefully, we keep getting good news and they keep being professionals and we keep having full slates of football without any interruptions. There's nothing worse than having some really good line value and having the game cancel on you. It's just a frustrating thing that us sports bettors have to deal with.
Yes, indeed.
Well, speaking of the NFL, there's a couple surprises in the top teams, and I want to go over our top five, Doug, kind of see what your thoughts are, see if they line up with mine, just based on pure power ratings here. I'm going to start with Baltimore. I have them the top team, and I have Kansas City right under them. But it's just like Lamar Jackson said, Kansas City is our kryptonite. If they played again on a neutral, I'm betting Kansas City, even though I have Baltimore power rated higher. I just think that Baltimore is better against other teams, possibly. They have more margin of victory. So I do have Baltimore number one, KC number two. And number three, Doug, I hate to admit this. It pains me to say this, but I have the Green Bay Packers as the third best team in the NFL. Fourth, the LA Rams, and fifth, the Pittsburgh Steelers, kind of tied with the Saints, man. Was wondering where your top five are at.
Yeah, on that, this time of year, to be perfectly honest, it's very difficult for me to say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Power ratings is one thing, but in terms of how to look at teams, so I'm just going to throw them into a group, and I do have 5 teams, but the order, I'm a little up in the air. But I am on board with you on all but one of your top 5. Baltimore, I think it's hard to argue they're not probably the best team, and they're also the best overall team. Because in terms of their entire roster, from they have the offense, they have the defense, they can block, they can throw, and they have the full package. The thing, though, that concerns me about Baltimore is we're starting to see, and I don't know if this is going to end up being the case, but Lamar Jackson is not hitting receivers down the field consistently. And in that Kansas City game, that was readily apparent. And it's one thing to do it against Cincinnati. It's quite another to do against the Super Bowl champions. And so that's where the concern is for me with Baltimore, even moving forward. Now, is it fixable? Did he do it last year? Yes. Did he do it in college? Yes. So it's fixable, but in terms of the reliability aspect of him as a passer, that's a concern for at least for me. And then you mentioned Kansas City. Actually, I don't have Kansas City in my top 5 at the moment. I got them 6th, so it's not like they're far out there. But I just I think what you're seeing a little bit right now is a little bit they're laboring because they're getting everybody's best shot. And New England kind of put the formula together a little bit about, rushing 3, dropping 8. Not that hasn't been done before, but however they're doing, it's a little bit different. And, and when you're chasing a championship, it's not the same as defending one. Mm-hmm. And so that's just, I'm saying today. Now, in a week, my opinion might change entirely about them, but that's just where I see them at the moment.
Fair enough, man. Great points too. There's nothing wrong with that. Very close, and ratings are just for show right now, anyway. Opinion-based stuff. Every game, as we know, has its advantages and disadvantages within the metrics, right? So it's definitely something fun to talk about. But there's definitely weaknesses on teams that can be exploited, right, Doug?
No question about it, and I agree. And the other thing that I was surprised that you mentioned this, to be perfectly honest, and not to say that I think I'm smarter than you. It has nothing to do with it. But this team's is a little bit under the radar, I think, which is the Los Angeles Rams. They were one of my plays coming into the season, top plays, in fact, for over-under totals, because I got them at 7.5, and that just seemed to me to be easy money. I mean, this team went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They had a bad year last year, but the reason they had a bad year is their offensive line. I mean, they couldn't block you or I last year. Okay, they were horrible. Well, guess what? Sean McVay got a couple new guys in, changed the identity of the team to be more to run the ball, not only with the sweeps but also right up between the tackles. And this is a physical offensive line. They got faster on defense, getting rid of a bunch of the older players that they have, and of course they still have Aaron Donald. So the Rams, I think, are ready to go. They were definitely, in my top 5. And I know it as much as it pains you and puts a smile on my face. The Green Bay Packers deserve to be in anybody's top 5. But that defense going forward, that's a real concern.
Yeah, it's a concern for sure against the run, like the Niners, showed. And you haven't seen that explosion against them yet. I like the Packers with a lead for sure, and where the teams aren't running the ball as much. But their defense is still showing pretty good to me, so I have to have them 3, and it does pain me, Doug, and I appreciate you mentioning that, but I have to give credit where credit is due, as you know, and, the Packers, will see what happens, and we'll be talking about that game coming up in a few minutes here. Right before we get into those games, real quick, Doug, what are a few NFL teams that are overrated and underrated?
Well, you mentioned underrated. I just mentioned the Rams, and I believe that they definitely fall into that category. Another team that I actually think that's underrated, and I think they might have a coaching problem, is the Chargers. This team, what they've blown 17-point leads, yeah, I believe it is, or in back-to-back games. This is a team on the come. Their defense is quite good. Okay. Now they've had some breakdowns in the second half, and that to me is coaching adjustments of what teams are trying to do against them. So I see that as a problem there, but I still think this is a very good team. And I think they're, in terms of overall talent, they're definitely better than the Raiders and Denver. And if they could just win a couple of these games, this young guy, the quarterback from Oregon, oh my goodness. He's doing fantastic. I just love what this guy's doing. Now, overrated, one of these is going to put a frown on your face, and it's going to be the Chicago Bears, I'm going to say. But here's my reasoning, though. It's nothing to do with Packers, Bears, or any of that type of stuff, both of us being from the Midwest. The Bears defense is allowing them to hang around in games, okay? But that happened both in particular, the Tampa Bay game for sure, but against Detroit and Atlanta, when those two defenses just fell apart. Okay, there's no other way to put it. They should have lost those games. They didn't, and that's all that really matters. But if you're looking at it, to me, from a handicapping standpoint, I think that's where they're a little bit overvalued, and they still have a quarterback issue no matter what. And without a running game too, I just see that as becoming a problem as we go further into the season.
I 100% agree, Doug. I have the Bears, unfortunately, as much as it also pains me. This is why it's a perfect podcast for you, because my Bears are overrated and the Packers are still maybe underrated. The Bears 4-1. They should be 2-3 or 3-2. They some amazing comebacks, but more just. What does Atlanta do at the end of the game? What does Detroit do at the end of the game? They crumble, and the Bears took advantage of that, right? They're not so impressive on offense. And what I said about Nick Foles a couple weeks ago when they benched Mitch, I said, well, there's Nick Foles coming off the bench, not named the starter. Then there's Nick Foles named the starter. It's kind of like the full Fitzpatrick days, right? Not quite as good as what he should be. Now, I hope that the Bears get to the playoffs, and I do have an over 8 on them, and I'm just thinking that was more lucky. It got all the way down to 8, and I said, well, I don't like the Vikings in this division. I don't like the Lions as much, so I'm just going to grab the 8. And so far, I'm fortunate. But the Bears' defense has been keeping them in, and I don't even think it's Chuck Pagano. I think he has some terrible defensive schemes. I don't think he's doing a great job. I just think it's the pure skill and talent. Guys like Hicks, guys like Khalil Mack, guys like Eddie Jackson, Trevathan. These guys are just pure athletes, and I think they could be doing better than they even are, believe it or not. But that offense is pretty despicable. They better start running the ball better because they're not setting up their pass that well. So 100% agree with you. I also had the Chargers as maybe my best 1-4 team out there. I think I have them power rated at least what the Bears are, probably higher than the Bears at 1-4. The Vikings are slightly underrated at 1-4, and it's just because they're at 1-4. Their defense is going to improve. They're extremely young. And then I had overrated. Sorry to say this, but a 5-0 team and Seattle Seahawks, they have no defense, and they're letting teams hang around. And it's just Russell Wilson doing it all by himself. Well, there's going to be some games where Russell Wilson has a bad game. When Russell Wilson has a bad game, they're going to lose. There's nobody else that's going to fix that. And if you look at some of the upcoming games against the Rams, the Niners, they have a couple other good defenses that they're facing. Those are going to be a little bit more trouble for them, Doug, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. On that. With Pete Carroll, I'm going to say and I could be wrong on this, but I trust that the defense will get better. But there definitely seems to be limitations as to how good it can actually be. And I think that's a very interesting point to this season. And maybe we're in the middle of seeing football change. We've already seen it change in the SEC, for example, to where the SEC for years, 15 years was a dominant defensive league. Just dominant. And now it's an offensive league. And so I'm wondering if the same thing is occurring, and because I think the salary cap and how they pay quarterbacks is the reason why. And to my point there is that because you have to pay quarterbacks so much money now, especially if you have one that's even average to above average, and then of course you have to give him talent around him in order to succeed. Well, the salary cap only allows you to do so many things. So the fluctuation of your defensive personnel, it's hard to keep your better players under contract. So because of that, I think you see, for example, a team that would have a top 5 defense one year, they come back the following year and then they're 20th. Okay. If you have a good offensive team, you have a good offensive team. It's that simple. And conversely, the defenses are more volatile today. And I think that's really where the NFL is also changing.
100%. And the SEC was smart to do that because the rules started favoring offenses in the NFL. It filters down to college, and boom, the SEC figured that out pretty quick. And now the only SEC team that plays defense is Georgia. So we have a big matchup coming up this weekend too with Georgia and Bama. That's going to be such a fun one. We're going to find out which prevails, offense or defense, my man. Can't wait for that one. Well, let's get into some NFL games then, Doug. The first one I want to talk about is probably in the best division in football, which is the AFC North, surprisingly. And Cleveland is playing at Pittsburgh. The total on this game, 50.5-ish. Pittsburgh's minus 3.5. I'm going to let you start with this one.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Cleveland, 4-1, right? Well, here's something to think about for any of the listeners. And if you're under 25 years old, okay, and you're listening, you never know of the Cleveland Browns being 4-1. because the last time they were 4-1 was 1994.
Unreal.
Okay. Or if you're a little bit older, okay, the other thing to think about is that in 1994, Ace of Base was the number one group in the world. They had 3 top 10 hits, including The Sign. So, yeah, things have changed a little bit in Cleveland. Now, who gets the credit? I'm going to give it to their head coach, their new head coach, Kevin Stefanski. And I think he's done an absolutely wonderful job. And the thing that he's done, and you see this more and more in both college and pro, they bring organization. And that's what the difference is. So they bring the individuals together, which Cleveland has a lot of individual talented players, and they get them to play as a team. And I think that's exactly what he's done. Now, I do think, though, they're going to be up against it this week in Pittsburgh. And the reason I say that is Pittsburgh is averaging almost 30 points per game. And that's basically what Cleveland is giving up, even though the number of yards they're giving up is not that great. That's what they're actually giving up. Baker Mayfield is certainly improved, but he's still making mistakes. And when the Browns go to the Steel City, they are 2-25 straight up and 9-17-1 recently. Now, overall, I would wait and see if I could get Pittsburgh at -3, but I wouldn't have a problem pulling the trigger at -3.5 either.
Well, there you go, because I think we're on the same page here. Cleveland's impressed me a lot. 4-1's great, and it really helps my Cleveland makes the playoffs bet. The problem is I also have Cleveland take second in the division, and that's where I was a little surprised that the Steelers came out after a year of Big Ben being off this good. And they always prove me wrong. Their draft doesn't look good. And then their draft looks amazing, and this is the way they are. The system there, you know. The Cleveland Browns, they're playing kind of fast, but the Steelers are playing faster than normal. They're playing 68 plays per game is a pretty good pace for them, and I know it's because they're having a little bit more time of possession there, but one thing about the Steelers is I think their defense might be the best in the NFL. If not the best, it's top 3. It has to be. Maybe the Ravens, the Steelers, throw the Colts or the Bears, maybe, whatever. The issue I have with Cleveland is that even though they have a ton of talent, they've never shown me that they could be that team that beats the better team. They're never the team that can go into Three Rivers and win. You know, I think I saw a stat from Ralph Michaels that they lost 16 in a row at Three Rivers, and since 2000, the Steelers are 34-5-1 series record or something like that. Just an amazing stat there. So until that, you know, team that with the low expectations can climb over the bigger teams is when I might start betting on them. But right now the play has to be on the Steelers, and I'll take them at 3.5 here. I have no problem with that. I actually have them power rated higher. I have them winning 6.25 points. I ran it through my little algorithm, which I finally dusted off. It takes me a few weeks of stats to get involved before I dust off the old algorithm, and I have the Steelers by 6.33 points there. So I'm taking Pittsburgh here. I also kind of like the under 51, man. So any final thoughts?
Yeah. No, in terms of, I think it'll be a good game. I'm not quite as confident as you on Pittsburgh. It's just from a betting standpoint, because anytime you involve the hook at 3.5, that's always, it could be a little nerve wracking, from that standpoint. But I also, though, prefer even though with the scoring and of Pittsburgh and the lack of defense at least in terms of scoring, I think this also sets up to be an underplay as well.
Yeah, we'll see what the weather comes out. Maybe that gives it a little boost too. So if anyone wants to take the over, I like Pittsburgh a little bit more. Maybe 3 stars on Pittsburgh and 2 on the under 51. Let's move into the next game: Chicago versus Carolina. It's about -3. Carolina's a juiced -3. Maybe it's more like -2.75, something like that, right? Total on this is 44. Carolina is much better than people foresaw in the preseason. If you would have said 2 weeks ago they were probably the underrated team, well, now they're 3-2. They win 3 in a row at the Chargers, at Atlanta, right? And and then they beat somebody, the Cardinals. That's who they beat at home. 2 huge road victories like that. pretty impressive here. It showed me that Christian McCaffrey might be worth a ton in fantasy, but he didn't move them at all or much at all because Mike Davis is good, as far as a power rating. The Bears, they're fake news. I mean, as Trump would say, they're fake news at 4-1, but it doesn't mean they can't get better. But their schedule was pretty easy, and that Tampa Bay win could have went either way. There was certainly some officiating that helped the Bears on that last drive. Like I said earlier, the Bears are more of a 2-3 or 3-2 team. Carolina's defense has really stepped it up since weeks 1 and 2. I think they're catching teams off guard. I have an algorithm on this, and it says Carolina wins 23.63 to 20.27, right? So that's about 3 points right there. But my power ratings have only Carolina winning by 1.25. Well, what do you go by? For me, it's nothing. I'm actually not going to bet this game. But the Bears have been really efficient on defense, allowing only 17.2 yards per point. So they're good in the red zone. Carolina's got to look ahead. They have the Saints on deck. Maybe they're kind of believing everyone's saying the Bears are overrated, and maybe they look past them. I don't know. The lean, I guess, at 3 would be the Bears. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts.
Yeah, I do. And it's another coaching situation here. I mean, when Christian McCaffrey went down, I mean, who didn't think that the Panthers were done? I mean, it's just, they weren't given a chance. They were 0-2. But you know what? Again, Matt Rule as a coach, okay, this guy is making it happen. And this isn't news because his first job in college was Temple, which when he took over Temple, that was one of the worst jobs in all of college football. But yet he made them good. And took them to bowl games, had winning seasons. He did a fantastic job. For whatever reason, and I still don't know why, he leaves Temple to go to Baylor, who had just come off their scandal. Okay.
Yeah.
And so there isn't anybody that, for example, in the Big 12 that wouldn't have told you won't hear from Baylor for a decade after that scandal. Okay. That was the absolute assumption. What happens? 2 years later, Rule has them winning games. Okay. And again, they go to a decent bowl game. So then he goes to Carolina. So it's like, what's this guy thinking? Well, guess what? Teddy Bridgewater, pretty smart decision. Okay. Offensive line, very physical. That's how Rule likes to play, likes to run the ball, likes to blend in the pass. And he had a defense that was better than they played last year. Now, myself, I'm not a big fan of taking teams like Carolina that are off 3 covers in 3 weeks. And then let's also add in the fact that that they were underdogs in each one of those, because historically those types of teams only cover in the low 40s in their next game. But I'm still looking at the Panthers here. They're 16-6 after leading their last 2 games by 10 or more points at the half, and they're a perfect 6-0 against the number after an outright upset. I'll take the 2.5 or 3 with Carolina in this one.
Hey, you get no argument from me. You'll probably get some even money at 3. If you can get 2.5 and think you feel more comfortable doing it that way, I have no problem with that. The Bears certainly a little bit more overrated than what the record shows. Let's move on to the next game then. Houston versus Tennessee. Tennessee now -3. Juice is actually coming up on this. The total on this game is 55. So I was fortunate enough to give this out to Oddsbreakers members on Monday morning at -2, -110. I kind of foresaw, and I also bet them against Buffalo, which was great, worked out. So 2 good things working out for me as far as this. But I still think the spread might be wrong at 3. Tennessee dominates the stat sheet over Houston, except for yards per play for some reason. But as far as efficiency, 14.7 yards per point. Houston has 16.3 yards per point. On defense, 17.1 yards per point. That's a strong defense, close to what the Bears are. And Houston is a terrible 13.8 yards per point. Now, Houston has had a much harder schedule. I think their schedule ranks number 1. But they're on an interim coach here. They got that big win that they needed out of the way. Tennessee averages 30 points per game. Houston averages 22. The reason that this isn't a large play for me at 3 is because Houston does have that 0.5 yards per play net advantage over Tennessee. I think it actually might be a little bit higher than that. I have to relook at that. It looks wrong. But the biggest thing for me in the handicap is Houston is second to last, allowing 160 rushing yards per game. 160 on the ground. You know what Tennessee does with Derrick Henry.
Yep.
and they have some good players there. So now that they're finally healthy, they got their tackle back. They got A.J. Brown back. Wow, that guy is a freaking beast. I don't know if you watched that game last night. What a fantastic athlete he is.
Yep.
I'm still on Tennessee here -3. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. Is the line seems odd, that it's that small, and so of course that just naturally makes you think, okay, why is that? So I look at Tennessee now. Last night, or Tuesday night, I should say, was the first cover that Tennessee's had this season. They had won their 3 previous games by 1, 2, and 3 points. Everybody knew going in that their defense was not going to be that great, but they had the potential to have an exceptional offense. And that has basically that has turned out to be true. Now, yesterday they had a very good defensive game, even though Buffalo still gained a lot of yards. So I'm thinking that the line is not as far off as it appears that it is. Houston, they're certainly capable. Okay. I mean, that's the one thing. And to be perfectly honest, I think Bill O'Brien, not his coach, is a positive for this team. I think they have a little more ability, especially on offense, than what they have shown, and I think that the potential is going to be a little easier to reach. And also, this team, when they're on the road and they have had 2 games in which they have gained 6 or more yards per play, they're 12-3 against the number. I'm looking at this game. At 3. I think this game is going to be so tight that if you can get Tennessee at 2.5, I'd take Tennessee. If you can get Houston at 3.5, I'd take the 3.5.
For sure. I mean, there's a huge percentage difference between 2.5 and 3. I believe it's like 50 cents or something like that. 25. If you buy a half point off 3, it's 25 cents. So there you go, man. Huge, and that's a ton of. You do that every time. You get a 2.5, you take that, and then you can get 3.5 at -110. If you do that every single day, you're going to be a very successful sports bettor at middling. So completely agree with you there. It might be a tight game. I do think Tennessee has a slight edge here just because of the ground game, but good stuff there. Yep. Next one, you know a little bit more about than me, maybe. Green Bay versus Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is a +2.5 point dog, over under 54.5. And Doug, I've been watching this spread. I was kind of hoping to get to 3, and then then I realized it's not going to get to 3. And there's a reason why I'm not going to play Tampa. Now, what I will say, Doug, wouldn't it be great if the Packers have acquired someone like A.J. Green, maybe for a 4th round pick? He's not doing nothing in Cincinnati, or Julio Jones for a 3rd or 2nd round pick. That's none of my business, but man, I got to tell you, the Packers have so much there, and receiver is just something I think they're a little light on, especially with the injuries there, man. You can chime in a second on that. Matt LaFleur, coach of the year for sure. I wanted Tampa Bay, but the Vita Vea loss is so huge for me. Such a huge run clogger. I am worried about that. I don't like the fact that Green Bay had an early bye week, went 4-0. I think that throws teams off a little bit when they're in a groove. Don't like that. My algorithm has the Packers winning the game by 1.6 points. My power ratings have the Packers winning by 1.25 points. What is your thoughts?
Yeah, and this one, the first thing is just not everybody might remember this, but before 2002, these teams used to be division partners in the old NFC Central. And I go back to, I think it was from 1979 to 1992, before Brett Favre got there. Chris Berman, okay, we at one point I think we all loved him, and then maybe fell out of love after a while. But he used to refer to this as the Bay of Pigs, because these 2 teams were horrible from 79 to 91.
The Battle of the Bays.
Yes. And so that was always good fun there. But no, Tampa Bay, I think, they lost last week. I think they're going to be fired up for this game, especially after the loss, because it was a game they know that they should have won. And as long as they can keep track of the number of downs, or maybe even the number of quarters they're going to play, that it does go to 4, by the way, that, I think there's some things that they can do here. And I know the loss, certainly of Vita Vea, is important to to Tampa Bay. Still, though, this was the number 2 defense in the NFL in terms of total defense and the number 1 defense against the run. Is it going to be impacted? Sure. How much the first game that out of the box, we'll find out. But the one thing with the Packers is the Packers offense is built on balance, being able to run the ball and being able then to pass the ball, play action, with motions and different things that they're doing. San Francisco proved you take away the Packers running game, they struggle. Because when they have to go pass-only mode, and if they have even less talent this year, seemingly at wide receiver than they did last, I think that's a potential problem here. And the Bucs, they're 15-4 off an upset loss as a road favorite. I wouldn't be at all surprised, to be perfectly honest, if Tampa Bay wins the game.
Okay, fair enough. And yeah, the Bay of Pigs, that's an insult to pigs back in the 1980s and everything. But until Brett Favre game anyway for the Packers. But yeah, and then Warren Sapp eventually came in for Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay ended up winning. John Gruden got a lot of credit for that team, but Dungy had that defense where it was supposed to be, if everyone remembers. Yeah, man, I wonder if Leonard Fournette plays, and I wonder, the thing about Tampa is they're not that huge of a running team. Maybe that's probably a little bit better this year. I saw Ronald Jones do some good things, but that's really how San Fran also dominated the Packers. I can see a lot of different outcomes in this game. So I do know that Tampa has Tom Brady and they have 10 days. So that's something to think about too. But I'll probably be laying off this game. But let's talk about a really interesting game here. Kansas City versus the Buffalo Bills, plus 3.5. The total on this was 57.5. This was at 3, and then the Bills lost to Tennessee, and it became 3.5. The Bills are on a short week, but both these teams coming up off a loss. Doug, I'm gonna let you start this one.
Yeah, I mean, what does that mean? Somebody's going to have a 2-game losing streak.
That's right.
By the end of Monday night, and it'd be 2. And neither one would have thought that a couple of weeks ago. I think that the 3.5 is a tricky number, especially if you like Kansas City. But still, these are the defending champions. They have a lot of pride. Okay, and in their last 7 road games in the regular season, 7-0 straight up. 6-1 against the spread, going back to last year. For all the accolades that Josh Allen of Buffalo, their quarterback, has gotten, he played like many probably expected him to this year in Nashville on Tuesday night. He wasn't particularly accurate. He had a couple of picks. He no question, he's actually surpassed already anything I actually thought he would do. I thought this guy would be a for sure bust. I have no qualm saying it. I did. He's worked hard. He's to where he's gotten to be. I'm looking at this game in terms of the 3.5 points. Kansas City's defense, in their 5 games they've played, they've held 4 teams to 20 points or less. Buffalo, again, in their 5 games, they've held 1 team under 20 points. So for me, I'm taking the Chiefs minus the 3.5.
Well, there you are. The Chiefs, too bad the Chiefs aren't a dog. I think they're undefeated as a dog with Patrick Holmes, right? This was some really weird stats when I was looking at this and handicapping this. This total is very high. For some reason, if you look, both of these teams are better on the road. It's like their offenses are way better on the road than they are at home. I mean, that favors the Chiefs right there, and same with the defense. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because Buffalo had some easier road games where did they play at the Jets maybe, and maybe at Miami when Miami wasn't doing anything yet. So maybe it's some of that. But I found that to be really interesting here. My straight power rating has Kansas City at 3.5 exactly. The short week definitely favors Kansas City right here. The algorithm I use has them at 26.6 to 24.3, so that's a 2.3. Not liking the side, but I'm going to shock you a little bit here. My algorithm came up with a pretty low total, and when that happens, you question it. The NFL's been going over, but a lot of people are going to think that these offenses are just going to come out firing because they're both coming off a loss. But from what I've seen and what usually happens, the quarterbacks tighten up a little bit, have a little bit more ambivalence with the ball. You know, they don't want to throw those picks that you saw happen to both Mahomes and to Allen. That first pick from Allen wasn't even his fault, but you see a little bit more of the quarterbacks holding back, and the defenses are feeling a little bit more embarrassed too, so they step their game up. I see a lot of ways that this thing can go under the total, and you look, the rain might be just happening this week in Buffalo, and you always get a little bit wind off the lake there. So I'm taking the under, and I'm going to take it with some balls here because it's the highest total of the week, 57.5, one of the highest totals I've seen in football. Doug, any last thoughts?
Yeah, on that, the total, that's an interesting one, and I agree with you on the total. I think this has a possibility of going under. We just had a 57, or at least it was. I didn't see actually with the final one. I don't recall. But Minnesota and Seattle last week was 57.5 for most of the week. I did not see the final number.
It closed at 56 because of the rain.
It did. Okay, all right. So because that one there was an interesting point. I mean, for years, anything that was a high total like that always went under. But then there was a more recent surge of where I believe it was right around 70% of those games were going over if they were 57 or higher. So, but I still agree. I think this sets up to be more of, and to their point, is not only is it the quarterbacks maybe that aren't willing to pull the trigger, the coaches aren't willing to pull the trigger on those deep passes and go for those down the field throws as much. So they'll play it a little bit safer. So yeah, I agree with you on the under.
All right, man. I was thinking that I was going to get some fight. I'm really happy you agree with me there. That was something I was just like, I have to bet it because of this. Doug's going to kill me, and no, Doug was on my side. So
you mean Doug being disagreeable? Go figure.
I'll talk to your wife about that and see what she thinks.
Oh yeah, she'll, if you got an hour, she'll let you know.
I'm sure she will, man. Well, I wrote down the New York Jets versus Miami. I wrote down at -8, but this thing's at 9.5, close to 10 now. I hate to say it, but it's almost getting to the point where I have to play the Jets and just hold my freaking nose. I mean, the Jets are coming up with a ton of guys off injured reserve, a ton of them. You look at Mekhi Becton is questionable for week 6 now. You have Denzel Mims, their awesome draft pick that I liked a lot, coming off injured reserve week 6. Blake Cashman, the linebacker, coming off injured reserve week 6. Zuniga, the defensive end, coming off injured reserve. Patrick Onwasser coming off injured reserve week 6. Arthur Mollett's cornerback coming off injured reserve. There's just so many guys coming up. The Jets are actually going to have a real team, and they're playing Gase's old team in Miami. I don't know if Sam Darnold's playing yet, and I'm still waiting on that news, but I'm just going to say it. I didn't bet nothing here, but I might have to. It's going to be an ugly one. What are your thoughts?
Okay, my thought is that there's two things in the Jets' favor is that Fitzmagic is due to have a bad game. Okay, so that's one thing right off the top. But the other thing is that I would rather drink Michelob Ultra, which I hate, than bet the Jets. So that's my stance on the game. I'm staying away from this one, as far as I possibly can.
It's a division game, and I am in the circa, so I might have to. Maybe I'll just do it for the circa. We'll see. I'm going to think more about this one, but this is as a tease to people. Betting this and being right about it would feel pretty good. So a division game. One thing I do have is the Jets 10-1 to be the last team without a win. So I'm really hoping that Miami still wins here. But there's 10 points there, a little hedging opportunity. So I'll take a look at that. Is there any games that you like to throw out there, Doug?
There's nothing else, to be perfectly honest, that really stands out, to me. There's obviously a few things on the college board, but no, I think it's a good representation as to what's going on. There's a couple of games, obviously, that for docs that I'm looking at that, to be honest, I'd rather not discuss. At the present time, there's a couple things that look pretty inviting. But hey, we'll cross those bridges when we come to them. But I will ask you. I know we're supposed to be talking NFL, but you brought it up earlier. What do you think about Alabama and Georgia?
Alabama and Georgia. I'm saving that one actually for the next show with Kyle.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
No, it's good. What I will say is that if you don't watch this game, you don't like college football, because this game might be the best game of the weekend, including the NFL. You know, you have to watch this game. It means so much to these teams. Playoff implications. This line I expect to be bouncing between 4 and 6. I'm excited for it, Doug, and I'm sure you are as well.
Yeah. The one interesting note, I believe the last, I want to say 7 or 8 times that Nick Saban has been a favorite of 6 or less points. I think it's, I'm not 100% sure. It's either 8 or 9 games, but the last, as many times as that's been, he's only covered one of those.
No. Yep. That's I saw that stat too. So
yep.
That's something to think about for sure. Make sure you check out our YouTube and Doug's YouTube channel. Doug's giving out free plays left and right on Doug's YouTube channel. Fantastic stuff there. I watch it almost every day whenever I can. I make sure it pops up on my news feed. Doug, you do a great job for everybody, man. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you all for what you do for all of our listeners, what you do for all of your fans, what you do for the public as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yes, it's fun. You know, I mean, this is a really good deal. It's, you know, anything to do with sports. I mean, it's hard to go wrong. Sure, the wins and losses sometimes could be tough, but you know what? This is the chosen field. I haven't been at it officially since 2004. And as you know, I'm not one to brag up on myself, a great deal or anything like that. What you hear is pretty much what you get with me. I will say that right now having a little bit of success in the NFL at 12-6, 66%, up 2,890 units dollars in profit based on units. And so I'm looking to keep it going again this weekend.
Where can our listeners get your plays and great information?
Okay, what you do is you go to Doc Sports and you look for somebody named Doug Upstone, just like it sounds. You click on that, and everything is right there. Kev mentioned the free pick videos. I have the videos always listed right there to make it easier for everybody besides hunting around on YouTube. Also, I write articles also for Docs besides a number of other places. Right now, obviously all football related. So have that going, and you know, it's just a fun time of year, and you know, and just I'm having like you, I'm having a blast doing it, and just want to just keep it going. And the idea is not to make money for myself; the idea is to make money for people like you that are listening right now, whether it be free picks, whether it be my other picks. That's what's really important, because the rest of the stuff will take care of itself.
That's right, Doug. Thank you so much for coming on, my friends. Make sure you check out Doug Upstone at DocSports.com. You know what time it is, my friends. Time to give out our Refuse to Lose teaser. We are 3-2 in teasers so far. We are going to tease up the Dallas Cowboys up to 8 points at home against the Arizona Cardinals. I think Dalton is better than what people think he is. And I'm also going to tease the ugly, smelly, green New York Jets in a division game to plus 15.5 points. I think the fact that they got rid of Bell might spark this team this week. Next, we have our Bow to the Gambling Gods parlay. We're going to do another money line parlay. We are 1-2, still up a couple units though. We're going to take Virginia Tech minus 357. We're going to take Temple at minus 384 against South Florida. We're going to take UAB minus 589. Notre Dame at minus 735. They should be able to handle Louisville. We're going to take Marshall minus 531. The New England Patriots at minus 492 against Denver, and the Indianapolis Colts minus 379 against the Bengals. This should pay about 2.5 to 1. 7 legs on this baby. Book it. And now it is time for
The Sharp Side of the Force.
The Sharp Side of the Force is brought to you by uwager.eu. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit uwager and use the promo code ODDSBreakers. All right, NFL Week 6 Sharp Money. We are starting with the NFL today. Sharp Money on the Titans minus 2 to minus 3.5, hosting Houston. Dual action. 71% of the tickets on the Titans, 80% of the money. Sharp money on the Vikings, -3.5 to -4.5, hosting the Falcons. Dual action, 72% tickets and 91% of the money. Sharp money on the Bears, +3 to +1 at Carolina. 52% of the tickets on the Bears, 82% of the money on the Bears. Sharp money on Jacksonville, +3, hosting the Lions. 36% of the tickets on Jacksonville, 58% of the money. Sharp money on the Bengals, +8.5 to +8. At the Colts, 60% of the tickets and 86% of the money. Sharp money on the New York Jets, +9.5 at the Dolphins. 34% tickets and 55% of the money. Sharp money on the Cowboys, +2.5, hosting the Cardinals. 43% of the tickets on the Cowboys, 69% of the money. And sharp money on the Chiefs, -3 to -3.5 at the Bills. Dual action, 75% of the tickets on the Chiefs, 92% of the money is on the Chiefs. Only three favorites there, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dogs. So sharp money is always going to lean the dogs, if you haven't noticed. Sharp totals: Bears versus Panthers, over 44 to 44.5. 35% of the tickets on the over. 89% of the money is on the over. They are calling these defenses bullshit. Chiefs versus Bills, over 55 to 57.5. 58% of the tickets on the Chiefs. On the over. And 81% of the money is on the over. 58% tickets, 81% of the money. I disagree on that one. College football, week 7, sharp money. And remember, this is as of Wednesday afternoon. Sharp money on Georgia State, +5 to +3.5 at Arkansas State. 61% of the tickets and 98% of the money. Sharp money on Navy at +1 at East Carolina. 54% of the tickets, 80% of the money. Sharp money on Texas State, +3 at South Alabama. 36% of the tickets, 90% of the money. Sharp money on Clemson at Georgia Tech. 60% of the tickets and 80% of the money. Sharp money on Western Kentucky, +14 at UAB. 43% of the tickets and 64% of the money. Sharp money on Notre Dame, -14 to -16.5, hosting Louisville. 51% of the tickets on Notre Dame, 78% of the money. Sharp money on North Texas, +7 at Middle Tennessee State. 55% of the tickets and 76% of the money. Sharp money on Southern Miss, -3.5 to -5.5 at UTEP. 60% of the tickets and 97% of the money. Sharp totals, lots of them too. Sharp totals on BYU versus Houston, over 60 to 63. 52% of the tickets and 99% of the money. Sharp money on the over Texas State versus South Alabama, 56.5 to 58.5, 27% of the tickets and 89% of the money. Liberty versus Syracuse, under 56 to 53, 39% of the tickets and 65% of the money. I disagree with that. Sharp money on South Florida versus Temple, under 54.5, 22% of the tickets and 57% of the money. Sharp money on Auburn versus South Carolina, over 50 to 51.5, 43% of the tickets and 90% of the money. Sharp money on Western Kentucky versus UAB, over 44.5, 44% of the tickets and 78% of the money. Sharp money on Army versus UTSA, under 51.5 to 49.5, 35% of the tickets and 89% of the money's on the under. Sharp money on UCF versus Memphis, over 74.5 to 75. Dual action, 66% of the tickets and 90% of the money. Sharp money on Virginia versus Wake Forest, under 63.5 to 61.5, 38% of the tickets and 68% of the money. Sharp money on Texas A&M versus Mississippi State, over 54.5, 18% of the tickets and 69% of the money. Sharp money on North Texas versus Middle Tennessee State, over 67.5 to 72.5, 46% of the tickets and 90% of the money. That thing moved. Sharp money on Boston College at Virginia Tech, over 57.5 to 62.5, 46% of the tickets and 94% of the money. Sharp money on Georgia versus Alabama, over 56.5, 38% of the tickets and 73% of the money. What a shame that Nick Saban just got diagnosed with COVID-19. This game is most likely, and unfortunately, getting postponed. If you got something to do this Saturday, maybe not a bad time to get it done, because we have the Big Ten starting next weekend. Of course, I'll still be watching these games and always hoping to cash these winners. All right, now it's time for a little UFC fight night, and we have our UFC specialist back for UFC on ESPN plus 38. Cub Fan Danny. You can follow him on Twitter at Cub Fan Danny. How you been, buddy? Long time no talk.
Yeah, buddy. It's been a while, man. Went back east, visit family, friends, did a little deep sea fishing, watched some fights out there where people have no idea what they're looking at. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, that's good. Nice little vacation, and I got mine over with as well in San Diego, but was able to still watch a lot of football. I didn't get the fights last weekend. I tried to look at some of the records, but that's about it for me. Been just trying to catch up here, but I'm excited because we have a decent card this weekend, and we have Khabib UFC 254 next weekend, my man.
Next weekend, that's going to be fun, right? Can you, Kiev, can you believe it's already October?
Oh, my God.
I mean, we had this horrendous year of 2020 that everybody wants to forget, but at the end of the day, I think it went by pretty quick, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's not like we're waiting for anything special when we're sitting here in lockdown. We just kind of waited for hopefully the madness to be over, right? Like the whole stay-at-home stuff.
Panic,
and
sure.
The panic, yeah. And, then all of a sudden it's October here. So, yeah, it's been going quick because all the sports are coming back and it made us a little bit busy. So,
I'll tell you what, I don't know about you, but I've been spending a lot of time with my neighbors, and we've been having a lot of good times, drinking a lot of beverages, watching some UFC because it's been back for a while. So it's been a quick summer, but I'm already over with this year. But we've got some good fights coming up, right?
Oh, we sure do. And I have a slight little cough, just to warn everybody. Might have to cough once or twice. But yeah, I'm excited for the fights. Definitely got to have you next week, though. Too. I'm so excited for these fights coming up. But why don't we just get? Oh yeah. Why don't we get started here? And I have a couple. I have two fights. How many did you pick? Same thing? Two fights?
I picked two fights here. Listen, every one of these fight night cards, it's difficult. I mean, there's 800 guys on the roster, and especially now with Corona, they're just bringing people up to just start fighting. So it's difficult to go back and look at a lot of these fighters. But I think just like myself and you, we kind of going back and looking a little bit and reviewing what we've seen. There's definitely value on this card. You're going to find some fun fights on this card. So, yeah, there's definitely something. If we didn't talk about it, but you see something there walking into the ring, throw a couple of shekels on there. Why not, right? So, there's going to be some good fights on this card.
For sure. And I have a fight to start out with, and I think it's the third to the last fight here. You have Jimmy Crute, the Brute, fighting Modestas Bukauskas. And this fight's interesting to me because Jimmy Crute is a big favorite, right? He's minus 340, and Modestas is my plus 280. Jimmy Crute is 11-1, has more UFC experience on his belt, but not a ton. He's got 4 UFC fights here. He lost one of them. Got caught in a submission in a Peruvian necktie. And so, you look at him, you're like, yeah, he's a good fighter. But you look at Modestas, and he's not bad either, 11-2. He only had one UFC fight, and the guy he fought wasn't, that great. Decent opponent here, and I'm looking for his name right here. Andreas, I believe it's Michailidis, and I've seen him.
He's from Poland, I believe.
Yeah,
so I watched the fight when you told me you were thinking about putting some.
He's Greece. He's from Greece, actually, and
Greece.
I seen him fight. He's 12-4, so he's not that bad. I mean, not great, but not that bad. And I'm looking at this plus 280. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm scratching my head a little bit. I look at some of the metrics. There isn't a lot of information really on Modestas. He's fought in different divisions here, or different federations. But he's a big guy. He's tall.
Yeah,
he's got a 78-inch reach compared to Jimmy Crute's 74-inch reach.
Yeah,
you look at it, and he's knocking people out in the first round a lot. And a ton of times actually. You're looking at all his fights; he's beating people up. Back in 2016 when he started, he lost a couple fights. But it sounds like he's grown a lot from that, and really deserves to be here. What I'm looking at here is the last out of his 13 fights. only 3 of them went over 1.5 rounds. So he likes to finish pretty quick. And you look at Jimmy Crute, obviously Crute has a little bit more experience, like I was saying before. You look at some of the metrics on Crute, he's a good striker. 55.87% significant strike accuracy. That's good. I look at that. That's a great stat. But he's finishing fights pretty quick too. Three of his four last fights went under 1.5 rounds. So what I like here, I like the under 1.5 rounds, and it's juiced at minus 125. That's telling you it's probably the right side early here. But I'll tell you this, man, the plus 280 on Modescus, I like that a lot too. It's not like he's fighting a big name guy. This guy can get dropped, in my opinion. Plus 280, are you kidding me? I'll throw a half unit on that, Danny. What do you think?
I don't like that play at all. So I went back and I watched the last fights for both guys, right? Crute absolutely dominated, and I mean dominated his last opponent. And typically when we think about wrestling, so when we think about UFC, we think about striking, we think about jiu-jitsu, right? And those are the two main things. In my opinion, wrestling is a number one skill set to have in wrestling right now. Jimmy Crute's last fight, he absolutely dominated his fighter, right? Absolutely dominated. How do you even say his name? Mikel? Let's just call him Michael. Dominate him. Right? It wasn't even close. He just absolutely destroyed him in the wrestling, exhausted him, and then beat the crap out of him. When I look at Buskauskas, he won that fight, right? And it could have been a behind the head shot at the very end of the round, which cost the fight for his opponent. So I could see why the spread is the way it is, right? Buskauskas is more of a stand-up fighter, and Crute is going to dominate you and get close to you and just wear you down and beat you that way, right? So when I look at that fight, I'm not comfortable with it, Kiev, right?
The under or the plus 280?
The plus 280.
Okay.
Right? I think the under is a better play. I don't like the plus. If you want to put a small play on it, I'm okay with that because you got the plus money there and anything can happen. But honestly, I think Jimmy's just going to dominate him and wear him out, destroy him, take him out, and I think it's going to be a pretty quick fight, maybe a first round, and take him out. So that's what I'm looking at with Jimmy Crute here.
All right, well, we have some disagreement there, but I do want to go 4 times my 2 stars on the under and a half star on the plus 280. So as long as it goes under, you're going to be a winner anyways, is the way I'm looking at it.
Listen, I don't blame you. Listen, anytime you get plus money, I'm okay with it.
All right, my man. Well, what do you have next? You have a fight picked out for us.
Yeah, so Claudio Silva and James Krause is going to be a fun fight, right? James Krause is just a technical fighter. He's really good. His last fight, he took on a day's notice, Kiev. A day's notice, and he fought a guy that absolutely can destroy you with one punch, and he did okay. He held his own on 1 day's notice. So, I like James Krause. He's always been a guy that you say he's going to go out there and fight. He's going to go out there and do the best that he can. He's been on The Ultimate Fighter. He's been around for a while, right? He's a really nice fighter. I enjoy watching him. Is he ever going to be a champion? No. He's the kind of guy that's going to be a gatekeeper. Guys that are coming up, he's going to fight them. He's got some good wins under his belt, right? Sergio Morales he's beat. He fought against Jorge Masvidal before. Even though he lost, he still went to a decision with him. So he's fought some guys. Bobby Green, even though he got knocked out with Bobby, he's got some good fights. And he went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of his last. He lost his last fight against Trevin, a day's notice, right? He's won 6 in a row before his last fight. So he's going to put up a good fight, right? The one thing that I look at him, his stand-up game is just so-so. It's nothing great, right? You don't look at the guy and say, that's John Jones. You don't look at the guy and say, that's Dan Henderson. You don't look at the guy and say, he's going to knock somebody out. But you know what? He's going to be competitive. He's very technical, and he's a fun fighter to watch, especially if you like somebody getting on the ground. But he's fighting a guy, Claudio Silva, who I really believe is an underrated fighter. This is a guy who's been hurt, right? So he's fought some of the top guys, Leon Edwards, right, back in 2014, and he hasn't fought again until 4 years later, mainly because he's been injured. He got hurt, and he could not fight, right? But when he comes back, submission choke, submission armbar, Samir naked choke, and they're not against no names. He's actually fought some good guys, right? So his record, he's 14-1, but his first fight, professional fight, was a disqualification with illegal elbows, right? Listen, I don't see why. I don't understand why he's a big underdog in this fight. When I'm looking at this, he's at a plus 145. Beginning, he was a minus 105, so you could see where the money was going on Krause. But I honestly think Claudio Silva is going to dominate this fight. Another black belt. Are they going to cancel each other out on the ground? Who's going to win up top? I know both of these guys could be shaky on their feet, but Silva is a beast, right? And I think he could have been, if he didn't get injured, he could have been one of the guys fighting for a title a while ago. So I think he's coming in here and having a point. He's trying to prove a point and become one of the top guys in the division. So to me, when I look at it, we're looking at value. Kiev, a plus 145, that's the best plus 145 I see on the card right now that I've seen, and I've seen back history, and I've watched back fights with him. He's the best plus 145 I've seen. There's no way he should be a plus 145 right now. This fight should be even. Even Silva should be favored in this fight. So I'm looking at Silva in this fight, winning this fight, plus 145. I think you're going to be okay.
It looks like this fight might spend a little bit of time on the ground. Krause has 14 submissions on his belt and 8 KOs. He's going to be going to the ground, and same with Claudio, right? Claudio, 14-1 here. Very strange that he's a dog at 14-1, in my opinion. And you are right. It's probably because he had 4 years off. He hasn't fought since August of 2019. So that's a while, but he's also, it seems like he's kind of used to that. Just picks his times and picks his poison. I agree with you. I think the odds are wrong on it.
I do.
I'm not sure he's going to win, but I think at plus 145, if you think it's an even fight, you got to take the plus 145 every time. So
you have to. To me, this fight's going the distance. Okay. Unfortunately, Krause's last fight, like I said, he had a 1 day's notice. So check this out. This guy's a baller, right? How cool is this guy? The day before the fight, the opponent dropped out. The main event of the undercard, right? He drops out. The guy was there cornering somebody else on the main card. And they said, hey, do you want to fight? And he did it. So he's definitely a baller. He's a great guy to watch. But again, will he ever be a champion? No. Does he have that knockout power? No. Does he have a great ground game? Yeah, it's really good. Is he technical? 100%. You're going to see him. It's going to be very technical fighting. He's not going to be wild. Everything's going to be straight and perfect like an arrow, which makes him a dangerous fighter. But I just think ultimately Silva is the better fighter in this case.
All right, man. Well, we have some agreement there for sure. Now, before we get in the main event, I just want to mention a fight I'm looking at. And I haven't made a decision, Danny. And I'm looking at Caitlin Chukagian. She's fighting a very good fighter, Jessica Andrade here. And Andrade was great for a long time. She lost her last 2 fights. To a couple pretty good fighters, right? But I'm looking and metrically, she's the better tactical fighter than Chukagian. Caitlin. But Chukagian's bigger than her by a lot. And you look at the metrics on her, 68-inch reach to 62-inch reach. She's 5'9". Jessica Andrade is 5'1". Takedown average, Andrade's going to get her. She's going to be on the ground a lot. As a matter of fact, Andrade finishes her fights a lot more. Maybe that's why she's the favorite here. But Caitlin goes the distance with a lot of people, right? A lot. As a matter of fact, her last 4 fights, she lost that once, and that was against the second best woman fighter I've ever seen, and Valentina Shevchenko. And that's something. She went 3 rounds with her at least, and Shevchenko's just so damn good. And then you look at some of the other fights she won against Jennifer Maia. Hell yeah, I mean, that's a good name right there. And Joanna Calderwood. Yeah, dude, I mean, she's beaten some pretty good fighters there. I'm just looking at the plus money here. Not terrible, plus 125. I might take a shot at it, but we'll see what your thoughts were.
Okay, I love your thinking there, right? And unless it's a main event, unless it's Shevchenko, which if it wasn't for my wife, I'd probably be dating her. Look. They're both really, really good fighters, right? Andrade did beat Rose Namajunas and won the title from her. But listen, it was people say it was a fluke, right? She got head dropped and she got knocked out, right? But then she came back and she lost against Zhang Weili and she lost against Rose Namajunas again, right? So she's fought some of the best in the business, right? She fought against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, right? So she fought, even though she lost, she's fought against a lot of the best, right? But Caitlin as well, right? Caitlin's no joke, right? She fought Jessica Ai, Joanne Calderwood, Jennifer Maia, Valentina she lost against, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody should lose against Valentina, my girlfriend. So she's fought some of the best too. So when we're looking at it, yeah, of course. Why not take the plus money? I stay away from the women fighters because anything could happen. And typically it goes to the end, right? And it's a decision. But I don't have any issues with this. I actually think that's a great play.
And I'm not going to make it
money on this and have some play for this fight. Yes, take the dog in this one because you've got a better chance than you taking the favorite on this fight just because of how they match up and how they do things.
Yeah, I think Caitlin just needs to stay on her feet. If she can stay on her feet, get to the cage when Jessica's making her move. Power her off her a little bit, sprawl as much as you can. Yeah. I can see her winning this fight, and so that's why I like it. I'm not going to make this. I'm not going to make this play today or tomorrow by any means, but I'm going to be having some beers on Saturday night and might push the yes button if you know what I'm saying.
And it's okay. See how you're doing the whole night, right? If you're doing really well, throw the yes button on that. I think it's a great play, and especially with the women. Listen, they don't get knocked out very often. Right, so anything could happen. Right,
yeah, absolutely.
I think you have a better chance of this one going to distance than ending early. But yeah, I like the play. Good call.
All right, my man. Well, why don't we get into the main event then, Danny? You know a little bit about these fighters here. As a matter of fact, we saw Brian Ortega's last fight together when we were both on Holloway. And Holloway, I think he was a dog for some reason. Yeah, Ortega had all this hype on him. And what do you do about hype, Dan? Danny, what do you do about hype? You fade it, man. It's your thing. Yeah. And it worked out for us against Chan Sung Jung. And what is your thoughts here? I have a few thoughts and I think I have two plays.
Listen, I think Brian Ortega was a guy that just had right moments, right time. I don't think he's a great fighter, great jiu-jitsu guy. I think the story is played up a little bit with the guy. You're going to see a lot of things about him growing up, and you're going to see how he beat those odds, right? And you're going to pull at your heartstrings with him. They're going to show you a lot of the fight with Frankie Edgar, right, where he uppercutted Frankie Edgar like a video game, right, and he went flying up in the air. Frankie Edgar's a little bit older now, a boss, but Ortega's a big boy at this 145 division, right? I bought into a little bit. Kiev the hype a little bit with him. I didn't think he was great. Listen, he beat up Frankie Edgar, got the title fight against Max Holloway, and what happened to him? He got his pants pulled down. Mm-hmm. He got beat up. Beat up how? Not on the ground, stand up, right? So to me, when I look at Ortega, I think of him as a little bit soft on his feet. Face is soft. Mentally, he's soft. He's not, to me, can he be a champion? Yes. A long-term champion? No. A mistake champion? Yes. Right? One bad move by the champ, he takes advantage of it, and that's it. But he's never going to be a great champion. Never going to be a great fighter. because he's soft. Okay?
Okay.
Now, the Korean Zombie. What a great name, right? Wouldn't you love to walk around work, right? Or walk around the office at home and they're calling you the Kiev Zombie? What a fun name.
I would make it like a pin on my shirt if that was my name.
How fun is that? So listen, if you guys want to bet this fight, you're going to see Chan Sung Young, right? And you're going to see everywhere else is going to say Korean Zombie, but that's his real name. So, he's a guy that's fantastic on his feet, Kiev. Fantastic. There's a big gap in his career from 2013 to 17, not because he was injured, not because he didn't want to fight, because he was forced to go to the military for North Korea. Okay, so he's a fighter. He's a gamer. He fought Dustin Poirier. He fought Jose Aldo. He fought Dennis Bermudez, Yair Rodriguez, Renito from Brazil, Frankie Edgar. Go look at his last fight against Renito. Oh my God, he absolutely destroyed him. Okay, so we're talking about a guy who took 4 years off, came back and beat Dennis Bermudez with a KO. Yeah, he lost against Yair Rodriguez a year later, but he's a very good fighter himself. He's fought the top of the top, Kiev. Mm-hmm. So I look at this fight, right, and I say, are the numbers there, right? I'm looking at it was -1. Geez, when did it open at?
Well, I mean, it's been open for a while, and they take it off on the weekends.
-210. It's down to -190 right now. Okay, mm-hmm. Money's going to come on Ortega. Listen, I love Korean Zombie in this fight, not just to win, but I think he's going to end this fight. This is a 5-round fight. This is not a 3-round. He's going to finish this fight. He's not going to finish it by submission. If he's going to finish it, it's going to be by a KO. All right. He's just as big as Brian Ortega. They're both big for the division. I mean, this is 145 pounds. One's 5'8", the other guy's 5'7", but it's a big 5'8", a big 5'7". Go look at the last fights from Korean Zombie. He's destroying people on his stand-up. Destroying them. That's where Ortega has the issues, on his stand-up. Not his ground game. It's fantastic. It's one of the best in UFC. But when it comes to stand-up, I think he's soft. And I think this is where Korean Zombie comes in and takes him. So, you could take over a round and a half, right? I mean, it's still minus money. You could take over 2.5 rounds, right? Plus 104. But I think this round, it's going to end before 5.
Yeah, I agree. I agree too. And it did open up October 2nd, and then was at 205, -205. Then he was a big -245 favorite. Then it got hit. Then kind of the other books jumped in, and then it fixed itself around October 7th at -185, -190-ish right here. It's kind of been bouncing back and forth. Ortega's getting some money because of his name and his record and things like that. But how can you not bet on the Korean Zombie during Halloween season, Danny? I mean,
good point. That's a great freaking point, Kiev. Right? Halloween fight,
man. The zombie. The ghouls will be cheering for him as well, giving him a little extra stamina. But the truth is, you hit it, man. Tactical fighter, absolutely, 100%. I think that he has a lot of advantages over Ortega, and I also like the fact that he fought Frankie Edgar and beat him up quicker. He took out Frankie Edgar little less than a year ago, December 21st, 2019, in the first round, right? The first round. And Edgar kind of, he's been kind of going downhill a little bit, but
can I say a quick point here? This is what I don't like about Ortega when I say he's soft, okay? Frankie Edgar did not have to fight Brian Ortega, okay? Frankie Edgar had the opportunity to fight Holloway for the title. Holloway got hurt, but Frankie Edgar goes, you know what? I'm going to fight. And Frankie Edgar took the beating, took the uppercut, and he got knocked out. Max Holloway, the same thing happened to him where he got injured, and Ortega goes, I will not fight anybody else until I fight for the title. You see the difference? One guy was scared because if he lost, he wasn't going to get the title fight. The other guy goes, I'll fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. Mm-hmm. When Ortega knocked out Frankie, everybody was on that Ortega bandwagon.
Yep.
When he got to somebody who could stand up, he took a beating.
Yeah,
right?
we saw that fight in 2018, December 8th, 2018. And
so now we're looking at a similar fighter, right? Similar, maybe with more power, Kiev, okay? Maybe not as technical as Holloway, but more power than Holloway, going up against a guy who hasn't fought since 2018 because he took such a beating.
Mm-hmm. Not just that, Danny. Before Edgar, there's a couple guys that stand out, but nothing really. You know, Ortega did not. It was the Edgar fight that gave him all the hype, but apparently the hype's still somewhat there because I think that Chan Soon Young should be a bigger favorite than minus 190. Can you agree?
Listen, I don't blame you at all for saying that. I think it's on point, right? Because you've got to give Ortega some respect, right? He is a great fighter, but he's a submission guy for the most part, right? He's going to submit you. I can't anticipate Korean Zombie making a mistake, getting close. I mean, he's been rocking guys, dude, destroying them, taking them out. This is not a excuse me, by mistake knockout, right? This is not, the referee stopped it or he basically touched a guy and rocked him. He's been taking guys out. So I'm very bullish on Korean Zombie. I think that he's in his zone, and I think he wants that title fight really bad, right? And Dana White's already said the winner of this fight is going to get the title shot.
There you go. Well, there you go, man. That'd be fantastic to see who comes out of this, and I think it's going to be the Korean Zombie as well. And I like it at minus 190, and I like it for 3 stars at minus 190. I'm pretty confident. But what I also like is if you can find it within the distance, it is at plus 100, and there's 5 rounds right there. I don't think Ortega's going to last 5 rounds after being off for 2 years. I'm putting 1 star on it, but you can do what you want with that, baby.
Yeah, I think that's a go do your shopping. You can get that inside the distance with Korean Zombie, right? And again, Jung, right? Young. But yeah, you could certainly get him at plus 100 inside the distance. If this fight goes anywhere, it's going to be inside the distance.
And then we'll see him fight Alexander Volkanovski and probably lose.
Well, you never know. But hey, listen, let's see where those odds come out, and then we're gonna put our money on. Let's see how this fight goes here.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. All right, man. Well, cool, good stuff. I'm liking it, Danny. We're pretty much out of time. Is there anything else you want to throw out there?
No, next week is gonna be fun. Kiev, Khabib, and Gaethje is gonna be next week, right? And
can't wait.
Keep an eye on those lines, right? We got Robert Whittaker and Cannonier fighting. Who else is going to be on? There's going to be a nice card next weekend. So if you want to, Walt Harris and Alexander Volkov, listen, if you want to not go out this weekend with your girlfriend or with the wife and save that little bit of money and then next weekend get that fight, I think it's going to be worth it.
Right. Or use it as bargaining chip. Take her out to dinner this weekend and so you can sit at home.
Forget about it. You're going to win money this weekend. Take that money that you won and whatever scraps you have and buy the fight. You're gonna make some money this weekend.
All right, my friends. That was Cub Fan Danny. Check him out on Twitter at Cub Fan Danny, my man. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Great job as always. Can't wait to watch the fights.
Brother, thank you so much again.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for hanging in there. Long show today. Lots of information. If you have any questions, please feel free to tweet us at the Oddsbreakers to break down any games that you would like. Really appreciate you listeners out there. Have a great weekend. Have a blast watching the fights, watching the games, and go get some money.